Let's start with something a lot of folks over 60 don't talk about, at least not out loud. Sex. Yes, that part of life. And if your eyebrows just went up or you felt the urge to giggle, you're in good company. You'd be surprised how many people think romance and intimacy somehow get retired along with their work badge and coffee mug. But the truth? That part of you doesn't magically disappear just because your AARP card showed up in the mail. Now maybe you've been wondering quietly, is it normal that I still think about sex? Or maybe you're thinking the opposite. Is it normal that I don't? Maybe things don't quite work like they used to. Or maybe your partner is going through changes of their own and suddenly the whole idea of sex feels complicated, or awkward, or even a little sad. If any of that sounds familiar, just take a deep breath. You're not broken, and you're definitely not alone. Let me tell you a little story. A few months back, I had coffee with my friend Lou. 72, sharp as a tack, always wears those newsboy hats that make him look like an old-school movie star. We're sitting there, just chatting about how knees are the new weather forecasters, and out of nowhere, he leans in and says, "Can I ask you something a little personal?" Now, when Lou gets that tone, you know it's going to be good. "I've been dating this wonderful woman," he says. "Smart, funny. She makes a better meatloaf than my late wife," which is saying something. "But I'm nervous, about being with someone again. I don't know if things will cooperate." And right there, over lukewarm diner coffee, Lou summed up what a lot of folks feel but don't say. See, we spend so much of our lives being told that intimacy belongs to the young, that it's all six-packs and candlelight and tangled bed sheets. And let's be honest, when you're dealing with hip replacements, dry spells, literal and figurative, or figuring out how to use a CPAP machine without strangling each other in the dark, that Hollywood version feels laughably far away.
But here's the good news. Intimacy doesn't expire. In fact, for a lot of people, it gets better, slower, deeper, kinder. Less about proving something, more about being with someone. Less pressure, more presence. Less performance, more connection. And yeah, the mechanics might need a little tweaking. Hormones shift, energy levels fluctuate, bodies surprise you in all kinds of ways. But that doesn't mean it's over. It just means it's different. The real challenge, and I'm saying this with all the warmth in the world, is that we've never been taught how to talk about it. Think about it. Growing up, most of us didn't get a single decent conversation about sex. It was hush-hush, maybe a few awkward diagrams in high school. Then, once we hit 60, it's like society turns the volume down completely. But let me tell you something. Silence is not wisdom. Silence is just silence. And if you've been carrying questions or shame or fears that something's wrong with you because you're not feeling it the way you used to, or are feeling it but don't know what to do about it, you deserve better than silence. Because your body, still yours. Your desire, still real. And love, affection, pleasure, whether it's a slow dance in the kitchen or holding hands on the porch swing, is still very much on the table. So, if your interest in intimacy has shifted, or you're dealing with physical changes, or you're just plain curious about what's normal these days, I want to invite you to stay right here. There's no judgment here, no awkward giggles. Okay, maybe a few. Just real talk, from someone who cares. We're going to take the embarrassment out of the bedroom. And trust me, you'll want to hear where this goes next.
Now, where were we? Oh yes, in the bedroom. Or at least the idea of it. And before you start blushing again, remember, this is just the two of us talking. Safe, warm, and honest. No white coats, no judgment. Just a chat over a cup of tea, maybe with a biscuit or two. So let's talk about what really happens to our bodies as we get older, and how it affects that spark we've been talking about. First, let me say this clearly. You're not imagining it.
things do change. For women, menopause can bring a whole host of unexpected guests. Vaginal dryness, hot flashes, mood shifts. It's like your body throws a surprise party and forgets to tell you who's coming. One day, everything feels fine. The next day, you're wondering if your hormones packed up and left town without leaving a note. And for men? Well, erections might take a bit more effort than they used to. Sometimes the engine turns over slower or needs a little more fuel in the tank. Maybe you've noticed it's harder to get going, or the recovery time after intimacy has stretched from minutes to Netflix movie length. It's okay. It really is. Here's something I wish someone had said earlier in life. Your body is allowed to change. It doesn't mean it's failing. It just means you're living. You've spent decades showing up for other people, raising families, building careers, cooking meals, paying bills, being the dependable one. Now your body is asking for a little patience, a little understanding, and maybe a few accommodations. You wouldn't yell at a classic car because it needs a little more time to warm up, would you? The key, and I cannot stress this enough, is communication. With your partner, yes, but also with yourself. There's no shame in asking your doctor about dryness or a little help with blood flow or hormone changes. There are solutions, and many of them are gentle, effective, and designed just for this season of life. And more importantly, there's no shame in adjusting what intimacy looks like for you. Let me tell you about Jan and Martha. They've been together nearly 40 years. Martha told me one day over folded laundry that after her hysterectomy, things in the bedroom changed dramatically. She was scared they'd lose their connection. But instead of brushing it under the rug, they got brave. They started talking, laughing, exploring new ways of being close that didn't always involve the full routine, as Martha calls it, with a wink.
Turns out, she said, cuddling on the couch with our shirts off and a bowl of popcorn was more romantic than half the hotel nights we had in our 20s. Intimacy isn't about what you can do, it's about what you share. Closeness, touch, eye contact, affection that says, "You still matter to me. I still want you." And if you're single, maybe recently widowed or divorced, and wondering, will anyone ever want this version of me again, please hear me now. You are not too old to be desired. You are not too wrinkled, too slow, too past your prime. Attraction doesn't have an expiration date, and there are so many people out there craving the same kind of gentle, genuine connection you are. One of the biggest myths, and it is a myth, is that aging is a slow slide into invisibility. Nonsense. You're not invisible. You're a whole human being, still growing, still feeling, still very much here. So if desire has gone quiet, don't panic. It's not gone forever. It might just be sleeping in. And with the right care, maybe even a spark of curiosity, it can wake back up. Stick around, we're just warming up. You know what's harder than talking about sex when you're older? Not talking about it and quietly carrying all the worries, questions, and frustrations in silence. We grew up in a generation where certain topics were kept behind closed doors. You didn't talk about those things. You certainly didn't bring it up at the dinner table. You just kept it private. You smiled, nodded, and figured it out alone. Or maybe you didn't. But now, we know better. Silence doesn't help us, it isolates us. Especially when it comes to something as deeply human as intimacy.
I was chatting with my neighbor, Ruth, 68, vibrant as ever, runs her garden club like a drill sergeant with a watering can. She told me about her new gentleman friend, Carl. They'd been seeing each other for a few months, going on walks, having coffee,
And one night he leaned in for a kiss. I nearly leapt off the porch swing, she laughed. Not because I didn't want to, but because I hadn't kissed anyone in over a decade. It wasn't the kiss that startled her. It was the vulnerability of it. The realization that being close to someone again meant opening up not just her heart, but her fears, her insecurities, her body. She said, "You know what really scared me? Not the kiss, but the conversation I knew we'd have to have if things went further." And oh, how real that is. Whether you've been with someone for decades or you're starting something new later in life, there's this moment, this crossroads, where you have to decide, am I going to talk about what I need, what I fear, what I want? And let me tell you, having that conversation, even if it makes your palms sweat, is one of the most powerful, freeing things you can do. Because once the words are out, the pressure drops. The awkwardness, it melts away. And what's left is trust, connection, a feeling that says, we're in this together. So what does that sound like? It might be as simple as, hey, things are different for me now. My body doesn't respond the same way it used to, and I'm still figuring it out. Or, I really want to be close, but I'm a little nervous. Can we take it slow? Or even, this is new territory for me, and I don't have all the answers, but I'd like to explore it with you. These aren't speeches, they're openings, invitations, and you don't have to be poetic or polished, you just have to be honest. And if you're with someone who truly cares, they'll meet you there with kindness. They might even be relieved because, chances are, they've been wrestling with the same unspoken questions. I once heard someone say that intimacy isn't about how your body performs. It's about how your soul feels in someone else's presence. That stuck with me. Because real intimacy, the kind that lasts, is built on shared truth. A little laughter, a lot of patience, and a willingness to say, here I am, even if I'm a little slower, a little softer, a little unsure. So whether you're navigating years of routine or stepping into something new after loss, change, or divorce, talk about it. Let your voice catch if it needs to. Let the conversation be messy or funny or tender. Just have it. Because when we talk about these things, something beautiful happens. We remember that we're not alone, that love, real, human, slightly clumsy love, is still available to us. And believe me, the connection that comes from being emotionally naked with someone, it's every bit as powerful as the physical kind. Don't miss what comes next. It might just surprise you. Let me ask you something, and be honest now. When was the last time you flirted? I'm not talking about anything risque. I mean the sweet kind. That sweet smile, that little sparkle in your eye when you compliment someone's haircut. Or the way you touch your partner's arm while you're telling a story. That soft nudge that says, I still see you. Because here's the truth, you don't need candlelit dinners or a bottle of wine to feel close to someone. You just need intention. The tiniest of gestures can light that spark again, even if it's been a while since anything's caught fire, if you know what I mean. I remember a couple, Marie and Joe. They'd been married 47 years, raised 4 kids, lived through a few health scares, a house fire, and even a disastrous kitchen remodel that nearly ended them. But one afternoon, I saw them walking hand in hand down the sidewalk. Joe pulling a little red wagon with their dog in it because Marie's arthritis had flared up and she couldn't manage the leash. I said, "That's love right there." And Joe winked and said, "Well, I'm hoping I get a little reward later." We all laughed, but there it was, that glimmer, that sweet flirtation, that reminder that closeness doesn't retire, it just changes uniforms. Sometimes we think we need to fix everything before we can feel intimate again. Lose weight, buy new lingerie, figure out the right pill, solve every medical mystery. But often what we really need is to just reconnect. So let's talk about some of the little ways people your age, our age, are finding their way back to each other. Like sitting together and watching a movie, but actually touching, hand on a knee,
head on a shoulder? When's the last time you just held each other? Or writing a note and leaving it on the pillow. Not a long letter, just a sticky note with, "You looked good today," or "I love that silly laugh you make." Even making your morning coffee and bringing it over with a wink. No words needed, just presence. You'd be amazed how much these tiny things open the door to deeper connection. And once that door opens, intimacy feels less like a mountain to climb and more like a walk in the park. Now, I know, sometimes health issues get in the way. Pain, fatigue, medications that mess with your libido, or emotional weight from past traumas or grief. It's okay to say that out loud. You don't have to pretend. But don't let those obstacles build a wall between you and pleasure. Because pleasure, in all its forms, is still possible. Sometimes it just needs a little creativity. Maybe penetration isn't comfortable anymore. That doesn't mean the end of intimacy. There's still kissing, touching, massages, even just lying close and talking skin to skin. Those moments are tender, powerful, and more than enough.
And if you're navigating these changes solo, whether you're widowed, divorced, or simply single, remember, self-pleasure, self-connection, even just honoring your own desire is part of staying connected to your body. There is no shame in that. In fact, it's one of the healthiest, most life-affirming things you can do. You are still allowed to feel joy in your body. You're still worthy of pleasure. And your body, no matter how many birthdays it's seen, is still capable of feeling good. So whether you're reigniting something old or starting something brand new, the secret isn't in grand gestures or fixing every little thing. It's in showing up, softly, honestly, lovingly. Because that's what intimacy is really about. And if something I've said today made you smile, or sparked a memory, or gave you a little hope, well then, I'd say that spark, it's already lit. Go ahead. Kiss the one you love a little longer tonight. Or, if you're still waiting for someone to kiss, start by being a little kinder to the person in the mirror. You're not done. Not even close.